But it's so nice to be here this morning. It's been, I think, 3 or 4 years since I last spoke to an audience of this size. I first would like first to recognize the Honorable Minister Penelope Beckles. I don't know if she remembered the last time we got together was at TV3. She was doing an interview and I was the next one afterwards at that early morning, 6 o'clock time. But nice to see you again. A very respected minister and one, I know you're quiet, but I know you have a lot of power. And of course, to recognize the CEO, Mr. Schultz, from Kariri, I think it is, right? And of course, all other protocols, I'd like to recognize that too, because it's quite a lot of impressive speakers here. I was asked to come about 2 weeks ago if I would like to make a presentation, and I said, well, okay, I haven't been doing too much these days, so COVID, I got kind of lazy. And I don't mind maybe getting my little brain agitated once more, and I will be more than happy to come. A week after, I read the agenda and I saw it wasn't the power of dreams that had me as a heading, it was the power of failure. I said, oh my God, how am I going to deal with that one? Because, there are two different sides of the rainbow. So I had to correct it, and thank God they put it back as power of dreams, or the power of the dream, which made it a lot easier for me to deal with. We all dream, as you all know. Some of us like to dream and dream and dream and never get up. And then there are those who like to dream, and boy, within a time they get up, they get focused on doing what they dreamt about and say, I really would like to make this thing happen. And that's the innate attribute of an entrepreneur who doesn't sit down and wait and think and make all kind of reasons why not to do anything, but gets on the ball and makes things happen. And I think what I've been asked to do today was really to talk about my journey, which everybody seems to know me for movie tongue, right? But that was the last 20 years. We just celebrated our 20th anniversary last week and opened the Dino Park, which I'll talk about a little later. But before that, there were 20 years before that, in the 1980s, when I'd come back to Trinidad from the University of Western Ontario. I sort of graduated there and then worked for Pete Marwick, which old is KPMG. Hated it. I couldn't do good at anything to do with auditing and accounting. To me, that was all about the past. And I always was a person who wanted to come with new ideas, new innovations. Even that time when I was at university, I was walking around to McDonald's. Can I afford to buy a McDonald's franchise? I always wanted to do something. At the end of the day, what made me was I wanted to be my own boss, my own destiny. Be able to get up in the morning and say, well, I ain't going to work today, and nobody's going to fire me. And that sort of drove me to the extent that when I came back in 1980, what do I do? Mommy and daddy wanted me to be this, and I was working with Pete Marwick, but I was just going through the motions. I mean, I met a lot of nice people there, but at the end of the day, I knew it was not for me. So I came back, spent about 4 years here. I think in those days, Pete Marwick was in Independence Square, in Marine Square. Just show you how far back I'm going now. 1980. And I used to go to, because of that drive, I used to go to all these shows, the small business show and this show in Canada, looking for something to do. What can I really become? I mean, I was always a person very active, always wanted to do things at school. I would be the school captain. I played Trinidad tennis. I represented as good as I could be then. Wasn't the best. Didn't make it to Wimbledon. But I continued to try to do something. Would I be a sports player? Would I be a cricketer? Whatever. I went to one show and I saw this thing called Kiddie Rama. I don't know how far back you all go, but 1980, 40 years ago. Kiddie Rama, which was, you put 25 cents into this little machine. I saw it in a mall, Hillcrest Mall to be exactly, in Richmond Hill. And it would play a 2-minute cartoon Popeye movie, or cartoon Popeye, with olive oil and so on. And then the kid would put the money in, and I would sit down in the food hall and just watch these kids just going and watching this thing. I say, that's simple enough that I could do it. I know brain. So I decided at the cost of $1,500 US each or Canadian, I would bet 3. So I went to my dad's door. Dad, I think I could get a little $4,500. Boy, I like this idea, Say, boy, But of course, get me out of his way. He decided to fund it, and I brought these 3 machines in. And in those days, when they talked about Piarco Airport, that was the old airport. And if you remember the old airport, BWIA was known then, which is Caribbean Airlines, but will it arrive? So it always had delays, delays, delays. And when a family from Cunupia or wherever, Central Trinidad, going away, the son going to study law, the whole village used to go. So I used to sit down and observe all these children, crying on the ground. There was steps there. And I said, well, this is a captured market. And again, that's because I was always looking around, very observant. And I said, I could put all that machine in Piarco Airport. Well, boy, making me little $2,000 at a accountant firm and making $60 a day was wow, I became rich. So 60 by 7, 420, I made $2,000 cash doing these machines. Mind you, I had to, thank God the traffic wasn't bad then because I had to go from Port of Spain. Every minute the machine breaking down or the projector not working. I said, Lord. So I said it became so interesting. And they used to tell me they have lines, boy. Mr. Chen, have a line at your machine. I said, really? Okay, time to hire somebody. So I hired, when it's an arcade machine to run on its own, I went and actually hired an employee. And this thing started to do $100, $200 a day. Well, at my age now, I'm in my young 20s and think, that's plenty money for me. You don't think so, Mr. Haddad? That's good plenty. So I started to make this money. I said, Dad, this thing looking good, boy. I wonder if I could get a spot upstairs in the Evening Gallery, which was really a rundown location. It was done, the chairman then was Mr. Geoff Surratt, Brigadier Surratt. And I told him, listen, this place is doing nothing. I will fix it up. Give me a little area to rent and I will put some machines. In those days, the timing, as you know, in entrepreneurship, very, very important. It was the day when people moved from the little mechanical shooting a little rabbit and thing with a little pop gun to the dimes of Atari, asteroids, Pac-Man. It just happened to me the right time for me. So I was able to afford 13 machines, 1 3. If you go up to the airport now, you'll see the little place upstairs where American Airlines had their office after I left. And there are 13 slots. And you want to know why you put 13 slots? Well, because those are where the machines went. And those 13 slot machines, or those machines, I wouldn't say slot machines, they were amusement machines, started to generate something like $2,000 a day. Well, you can imagine how my head got so big now. I'm really rich. And it became my first arcade. And I said, wow, this little business that started with 25 cent pieces is generating this kind of money. And I decided, well, I couldn't compete with all those big boys out there. I think it was Funky Boodram, them who had plenty of money. And me, a little schoolboy, trying to get going. Let me try and franchise this thing. So I came up with this slogan, have fun making money. And I sold 25 units at $300,000 each. And I gave everybody got 12 machines. So I made my first $1 million then. Having done that, of course, all the kids and the mothers and the fathers don't like me at all because they're wasting all this money in generations, places, So I said, but there was also the bad guys. They would come and bring the crowbar, the open machines and steal all my money. So I said, well, boy, what am I going to do here? So I decided to form a security company called Telecom Security. It actually was part of the telephone business. I was selling telephones at the time and, of course, trying to do something. Always trying to do something. And the telephone company was doing well. My good friend Selby Wilson was then the chairman of Telco in those days. And I tell him, well, listen, Selby, I want to get into a new business and I do have, would I be able to sell telephones? And he did give me a helping hand there. He became eventually the Minister of Finance. Going back a long time, boy. So I started the security company, and the security company, slow but surely, started to, guard service for all my stores and expanded into where today it is one of the leading companies that does a lot of ATM and replenishment, and I do a lot of bank work and stuff and so on. And it's really grown in stature. And so far, so good. Everything has been withheld, and I've brought in very talented people to run it. So that became how I started the second company. So we went from the games world arcade into the security company, into what we do now, most precise CIT transit services. Well, of course, I would just mention that I was along this journey, that I was involved in horse racing, and I loved horses, is one of my loves. And I eventually went to the race clubs. I was a very young person, I wasn't a member yet, and they weren't able to make much money. And these were the big wigs in the old days, fellas like Mr. Bruce Pocup and Mr. Poontip and Mr. Bovell. And I said, well, I have this game I like called Jackpot 6, where you pick the six winners of the six races and you get a jackpot. And they weren't doing very well. I said, well, get the young boys something to do now. Again, always trying to do something, always trying to do something. And I started this thing called Jackpot 6. In those days, the jackpot lottery was this yellow ticket, so I had 20 of them. And I think you paid $2 per one, right? And the jackpot was like $500,000. Well, my little old Jackpot 6 on horse racing and the limitations I had, which is what computerized, started to have jackpots of $800,000 a week. Well, all hell break loose. So I went to Selby Wilson, who's the Minister of Finance. I said, Selby, I feel we could do better if this thing could be computerized. No, I didn't know much about computers then. But I started to do research, and I said, if I could computerize this Jackpot 6 game, I could really do well with it. And so he said, boy, I'm not happy with the lottery there. Go ahead and see what you could do. So I did the research, control data, IBM, everybody, and I ended up at a company called GTech, who was a little company now doing some work out of Rhode Island, and the first one was in Sweden. So I brought them here, and if you see who came, you would think, well, who the hell are these people? Little young boy with short pants and they walking in the Hilton from GTech. I said, well, boy, I make a bad call here. Who the hell are these people? But lo and behold, they were very young and entrepreneurial too, starting this business. And I presented it to then Mr. Wilson, and then eventually went to Motley in 1994. And after 7 years of really fighting and up and down, in and out, taking the board to Puerto Rico to show them, taking them to Caracas to show them, all these are things I'm trying to do something. Hopefully I'll get through, because if I get this lottery, I could retire, I could buy my jet, It never happened that way, because the government owned the lottery. So I had to be a service provider, which is what I turned out to be. And the rest is history. In 1994, they signed the contract for Playway and Lotto, and the rest is probably, I think it contributes something like $1.6, $1.7 billion a year to the consolidated fund. So I was very happy about that. I did get my little pickback, which was, I got 20 locations. They're down to about 10 now, because I have so many of them around. And that was my payback, if you want to call it a payback. That became a very nice, innovative thing. I remember all the challenges we had along the route. But then what fascinated me again, and this is again the linkages for those who help entrepreneurs work, I love the big signs, those beautiful signs, digital signboards, which you would see in Las Vegas, because I have to go to the game shows to talk about the lottery. GTech would have their show there, and so on and so forth. And I would go to the MGM Grand and watch this big, massive sign. I say, boy, I wonder if that could work in Trinidad. So I said, I think it could. Let me go and try. So I bought a small one and I put it on the Brian Lara Promenade, right on the facade of Excellent Stores. Murchison Brown was the mayor then, and we were able to set it up, but it didn't do very well. Everybody said they had to look up, and it's too hard in the head, and so on and so forth. So it kind of failed, and I said, whoa, looks like my first failure. Maybe I now should be talking about the power of failure, right? But I didn't give up. So if I had to do that particular topic, the power of failure was you will try, not everything works, and you try again, and it makes you a stronger person. So I watched this thing, boy, and it cost a little bit of money, those electronic boards. But I didn't give up. I said, I'll give it one more try. So I went on to Delta Glass on the highway, where there was traffic lights and those. You had to stop. Despite the fact that you have to stop anyway now, you have to stop. And I put on all my Playway numbers and Usenet, and all of a sudden everybody started calling, could I advertise? And the sign tech company became what it was, where I owned the largest number of digital signs in the country. You see a few of them at Movie Town right now. But the problem again is, a reason why I wouldn't invest more than what that I've invested is that once you have the money, the technology is so easy now that anybody could get into it, and I don't have a competitive advantage. So we still have it what we have it. But looking at these beautiful signs and stuff, I now came back to Trinidad, and I did open on Delta Glass on the highway, and then I went to, I think there's one in Piarco and so on and so forth. But I would needed now to get advertising. Who would want to advertise on these boards? And that ended me to go down to the barracks where the film companies used to advertise movies on TV, on movies coming attractions. The Globe and those companies would advertise an Indian movie or a local movie or whatever on the TV. So I went down there again, trying to see if I could get business with this new company. And I bounced up a bunch of people who were all the film distributors, who were all closing down because in those days they weren't doing very well. And they said, we started talking, and they got me interested in something called Cineplex. I said, what's a Cineplex? Sound like a real mathematical formula of some sort. And they started to talk about Cineplex in terms of having a number of cinemas in one under one roof. And I like movies. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, when they had Empire and Roxy and things, I used to be bish and go and watch movies at 12 o'clock. John Wayne, I think, was one of my big fans. And I love the movies, and I decided, well, um, I will look into it a little more. And it just caught my imagination. And I started to think about maybe I should try and develop a cineplex. Of course, there was no land. No banker wanted to lend me no money. But he have nothing, never go much in life. And the challenges were immense. So if you're going to be a unique entrepreneur, it don't come easy. You got to sell yourself. You have to be a very good marketing person. You have to go where nobody else goes or thinks. So that's what I face. All the bank managers that are still bank managers. And they come to me, boy, I was one who wasn't able to give you that support. And I had to sell and convince them up and down, yes, no, yes, no. And that went on for a good year back in 2000. And eventually, a lot of people started to say, this is not a bad idea. And I started to educate them. Everybody knew they were paying $10 for two movies at the Globe. Dachin come in $25 to buy one movie, but he man crazy. So there were a lot of papers I could go back to and show you the headlines. Chin in speculative land deal. Chin hoodwinking them. And all, it was a social media then. So you're getting these big headlines in the newspaper. And what happened was I was able to convert a lot of the naysayers to say, let's give him a chance. And I have to be thankful for people like Mr. Ken Gordon, Mr. Larry Hawaii, David Bulida, who, against all the odds, they said, give him a chance. And I got the chance. But even though I got a chance to get the initial financing, it was still up and down, pulling the plug on me all the time. That lesser people would have said, you know what, this isn't for me, boy. This is too much. And I had to go through a very tough time between 2000, 2001, 2002, trying to have board meetings, meeting with different bankers who say, I never went to a cinema in my life, and I don't think I'm going to a cinema again. All people like that, I mean, negative, negative, negative. So as an entrepreneur, be prepared, go with your dream, go with your ideas, but don't always believe what everybody tells you. This is you. This is what I'm going to create. Today, those same bank managers, right, come to me and say, boy, I would take my hat off to you. I didn't support it. And look at where you are today. It's at over a $2 billion company now. Guyana started back. We just lost the one in Price Plaza for obviously for good reasons. We still have been begged by many to come back to Shogunas. Who knows? We did the one in San Fernando. One of the big challenges I had, due to timing, like everything else, I had to build Guyana and Trinidad South at the same time, or else I would have lost one of the two. So we decided we would go. And of course, in those days, there was no oil in Guyana. So you see, I told them, you all don't knock me, because had I not come, you would not have got oil, you know. So President Ali is very in favor of that. He said, well, come on, come do some more stuff. So there's a lot of opportunity for me. Yes, we now went at a bad time. Of course, politics in Guyana was in 2018, 2019. Then, boom, 2020, COVID for the next 2 years. So we never had a chance to let the plane take off. And now we're starting to see that is opening up. There's so many things I want to do. We've brought in rides, we've all about the family. We're giving them, the Guyanese, and as you see in Trinidad, Movie Down has always been one focus, to try and develop family life, do the good things that a lot of things, if you read the papers, Movie Down is the only thing that shines in terms of the things that it does. So, continuing along that vein, and I don't think I missed out anything along this journey, I decided 2 years ago that I would build, I don't want to say I was Mr. Disney, but I was fascinated by the dinosaurs. Like, the movies are very good. And I wanted to build a park, a beautiful park where families could walk to, which is what we have, Carousel Park. And of course, Dino came around. The Lord not treated me too well these days because they want a rainy bring in there. It's a sludge. But it's nice. People the hits are impressive. And I hope I can open it back once the weather stays good next week. I'm asking the government, maybe I can ask Mrs. Beckers to give me, I only need one more acre. to make it world class. World class. I want 3/4 acre because that's the Portland. That's all I can have. If I get just 1 more acre, I think it would be a real attraction because there's so many things I want to do. Streets of the World was another thing I did along the route. I wanted to build the Epcot of the Caribbean in the Invaders Bay area, where all the cultures, all our people could go and see an Epcot of the Caribbean that is ours. It's not America's. You go there, you can have Indian food, you can have African food, you can have Spanish food, you can have a Sesame Street. So that's why it was called Streets of the World. So you walk through it, horse and buggy rides because of the retired horses, and really make this thing, a destination that when people arrive like today with that big ship, I ask them, where are they going? Where are they going? I did talk to Mr. Mitchell the other day. I said, let me bring a big tram car like in Disney, and I can bring them from the port all the way down into Port of Spain, drive them around, show them all the Magnificent Seven, bring them into movie town for a nice rum punch party, right? Charge them $150 US, and then take them back to the port. Why can't we do that? Watching me like this, I say, well, I'll come and talk to you. And it just shows you that, you never stop thinking of opportunities. There's so much to be done. You just have to think of it, create your little niche, and go after it, right? Because many times people tell me, boy, if I was what you went through, I would not have done it. There were so many negative things, So in a nutshell, that's basically my journey. I hope I have another few years left. I can do some more things because I really want this country to be, I always, as in horse racing, when they bring people from England and America, and you go to the Queen's Park Savannah, and the place is smelling, and I was very ashamed. So I never invite anybody. Now I have migrated to Canada. I am well loved in Toronto. I hope my horse, which I just call after West Indian names, this one is called Dream Jereem. Now you wonder why I call it, well, Dream Jereem is one of our fastest Commonwealth runners. He told me, I hope the horse could run as good as me, I said, yes, the horse won the other day, and it's going to a stakes race on Saturday. And my dream is to win the Queen's Plate next year with this horse. So imagine I could pull up the red, white, and black flag. We did it, and I hope the government would recognize me when I do that. So in a nutshell, it has been a tremendous, challenging journey. It's a journey that I would encourage all of you. Be separate. Don't follow. Don't worry about social media and all the negatives. If I was to read that, I'd go mad. Think about you. What you're doing the right things. You want to make it happen. You want to be your own boss, and it will happen. You just have to be determined. It doesn't come right the first time. And don't leave yourself to just one area. Try to be multifaceted. I have a lot of talented young people now because, as I said, I'm moving on in age. And I realize that the company not only needs better corporate governance, but also bringing in a lot of young people, a lot of talent. I mean the social media thing. We have thousands and millions something hits. I said, what does that mean? So I learned. But it really makes a difference, and I think that it is something I would definitely support all of you. If you need help, call me. I remember one guy who has Guru Foods, which is a kind of a natural nuts. He came to me, and I told him what he needed to do, and I know I say, boy, you in supermarkets and farm all them super farms, and you're doing good. So it just shows you a little bit of change, a little bit of ideas, and it makes a difference. So I hope I was able to quickly, in my 15 minutes, give you a little idea of the journey, and I hope that I will help a few of you along the way. So thank you very, very, very much.